Welcome back to Investing and Trading Live, sponsored by OTA Online Trading Academy, the world leader in financial education. If you missed tickets to the investing class, we have introductory investing classes for people just like you to come into these classes and see how the markets work, different techniques that we're illustrating and kind of talking about with you here today on income strategies, wealth strategies, which we'll talk about in this segment here, but how to make smart investing decisions. It's a physical place to go to see and be illustrated and have a visual experience on how the markets actually work. Just text the word investing to the number 210 for 2 seats to this class. You'll get a text right back with a link to our landing page so you can pick your own date. Text the word investing to the number 210, right meow. So, Al, we were talking in the last segment about how to use your capital wisely. We talked about in the first segment about using what you have, and then we get into odds and probabilities, small risk, high reward. But also you have to be efficient with your capital. Rather than just putting a bunch of money into investments, which would be kind of like paying cash for a house, right? Why not use less capital? In the house example, it would be like a mortgage, a small down payment to control a much larger asset, say a $50,000 to control $400,000, $500,000 house. You can do that same concept in the markets. Maybe you use $500 or $1,000 or $5,000, whatever position that you're doing, to control a heck of a lot more in the markets. And I think that's pretty important to really understand and be able to do, especially with your retirement accounts. Because with your retirement account, you don't want to put, what they like to say, quote unquote, all your eggs in one basket. But really, that's what people are actually doing when they have it managed by a broker, managed by an advisor. They're putting all their money into the market, which is crazy mutual funds, with the hope that it only goes up, which is only one direction. And you're really seeing over the past 2-3 years here, that's not the case for some people. So there's alternatives. To use less capital, be efficient with your money, but really protecting the majority of your capital. Explain that concept within a retirement account.
Well, that one that you just mentioned is protecting your capital. You have to do that. When you retire, that's it. When you're young, when you're in your 20s or 30s, you get another shot. You have maybe get a do-over or two. Now when you retire, that's it. So you have to, number one, protect what you have. But do you have enough? That's the question. And, you mentioned earlier when we were talking about Meta and some of those, the Magnificent Seven stocks, that some of them were up over 200%.
Magnificent Seven.
Okay.
Well, I'm going to try to get that by the end of the show here today.
Okay, we'll work on that later. But some of those stocks that have been up 200%, if you go back, and they're part of the S&P 500, but if you go back over the last couple of years, the S&P 500 has been pretty much flat. But if you were able to identify turning points in stocks, and you were able to use some of the assets that are not what your common portfolio is made of, which is a buy and hold strategy, typically of mutual funds. But there are some of the assets that we talk about in these classes that would allow you to get maximum productivity out of your money. If you had, and we mentioned before, that stocks like Meta, for example, have been down 60, 70% at one point in time and then up 200%. Well, what if you could have benefited from Meta when it went down 60 or 70%? You had actually had the opportunity to make money then, and then also make money when it went up 200%. Your returns would have been so much greater than just holding on to something like the S&P 500 and hoping, that's basically crossing your fingers and hoping that you have money there. You do that with alternative assets. Mentioned somebody driving in a car saying, well, they're talking about options. I don't understand that. Well, you at one point in time, you didn't know how to drive a car either. You had to learn. Mm-hmm. That's what we do. We teach you how to use these assets. We teach you what they are. And if, say, you were a business owner, if you're a business owner, you expect every employee that you have to be productive for you. Do the same thing with your investment dollars. Each dollar should be working for you in a way that benefits you. And you can use assets like options, for example. When Meta went down, when any stock goes down, or when the indexes go down, the S&P, the Dow, the NASDAQ, you can use an option as an insurance policy so your overall portfolio doesn't take a big hit or maybe doesn't go down at all or actually maybe makes money during that time period. There are very simple assets strategies you can use with options. Some people are afraid of them because they hear all these terms like iron condors and butterflies. There's only two options. There's only a call and a put. You can keep it very simple and just use those two assets, those two components of the options world.
Let's keep it as the driving example too, Al. People here keep it simple there, forward and reverse, right? People don't say, the mechanics to put it in from drive to forward, and you have the pistons firing, and you have the clutch that does this and that. They don't talk about that.
Exactly.
But you know what? It's because it's not talked about on TV. It's not talked about on the news. It's forward and reverse. Keep it simple in your trading and investing.
Well, when you retire, if you are relying on what you have in retirement in your accounts, in your 401k or your IRAs, that amount has to be large enough to get you through maybe another 20 or 30 years. Unfortunately, for a lot of people, that's not where they're sitting. Their 401ks have let them down. And, a company called Allianz did a survey just recently. I want to just quote a couple things from it. They found that 61% of people are more afraid of running out of money in their old age than they are of dying itself. And that makes sense when you think about it. Death is inevitable, but running out of cash isn't. Which of those two do you have control over? You have control over the cash part of it, very little control over when you die or if you're going to die. But you have to understand, again, how to get the maximum value out of the money you have so that cash that you have available in retirement is enough to have you live the lifestyle you want. This is a quote from Allianz. Being old and broke, when you're dead, you're dead. Maybe it sucks, but you don't know about it. Being old and broke, not the same. And that's true. If every day you're aware of the fact that you don't have enough money to pay your bills or to live the lifestyle you want, that's very painful. And how do you get around that? Well, number one, you can just cut back on your lifestyle and add more suffering to your life. You can beg for money. You can go back to work. You can rely on your kids, or you can get educated and do something about it. And how do you do that? Well, maybe coming into one of these classes, these 2-hour classes, is the first step, because we cover things like not only how to generate income, short-term income, but also how to create wealth and how to keep that wealth and how to keep growing it when you're in retirement. It's just a matter of getting the knowledge, and most people are afraid of risk because they just don't understand the markets, they don't understand the assets, and they don't understand how to control risk. We show you how to do that, but also once you have whatever you have in your retirement accounts, you need to make sure it stays with you. But then secondarily, your income from your job is gone. So how do you pay the bills without drawing down that retirement money to nothing? You learn how to generate income off of it. We talked to you about the assets that you can use for that. And then what about just growing that pile? Keep growing it. Maybe you want to leave a legacy. Maybe it's some kind of a charitable thing, or maybe you've got kids and grandkids and you want to help them out. Their ability to become wealthy is going to be harder. Every generation coming after this one is going to have a harder time creating wealth. In fact, this is the first generation now growing up that has less wealth than their parents did. And that's going to get worse as time goes on. So there's a way around this. If you're willing to put some effort into it and learn, and the knowledge is there. The assets that the big professionals at the institutions use, you can use the same things. They're consistently successful. The public typically is not. So there's obviously something that's being done differently by the institutions. We just want to help you bridge the gap between being a struggling retail trader to a consistently profitable or potentially consistently profitable trader and investor.
Yeah, even if you're brand new too. So with these classes that Al and I both teach, these are for anybody that has an interest in the market. So if you're trading right now 10, 20 years, 3, 5 years, whatever that is, and you're looking for more consistency, this class is for you. If you haven't traded before or invested before, maybe you're invested in the markets but not actively doing it, this is also for you. If you have a goal or objective financially, it just takes that first step. And that first step sometimes, yes, I get it. It's tough. People sometimes are afraid to come into a class where they don't know anybody, they don't know what's going on, and it's a new topic to them. But you know what? You're always going to be in that same spot 1 year, 2 years, 5 years down the road if you consistently do the same thing over and over financially. Check this out. We have these classes. They're only 2 hours. Unless Al teaches these about 2 hours and 15 minutes.
More good information.
He likes to talk a little bit, but definitely come in. Bring your spouse with. Text the word investing to the number 210 for 2 seats for this class. By the way, they're free. And come see how the markets worked and start that journey to make smart investing decisions. Text investing to the number 210. You talked about people learning how to drive. You did that at one point. Let's talk about some of the barriers that stop people from learning how to trade and invest coming up next. We'll be right back.